In the 1800s, in the West African Kingdom of Dahomey, there was a force so fierce that enemies whispered their name in fear. They were an army made entirely of women, a sight that struck both terror and awe into the hearts of all who faced them. They were known as the Agojie, and their story is one of incredible bravery, brutal warfare, and complex morality. Imagine for a moment an army of thousands of women, clad in traditional armor, standing in perfect formation under a dusky sky, the rhythmic beat of war drums echoing through the land. This wasn't a myth. This was the reality of Dahomey. Their legend would spread across continents, a testament to their unmatched discipline and ferocity. So, how did this extraordinary army come to be? In the 18th and 19th centuries, West Africa was a landscape of constant conflict. Kingdoms rose and fell, and survival depended on military might. The Kingdom of Dahomey, located in what is now modern-day Benin, was a major power in the region. Its strength was built on two pillars: relentless military conquest and, tragically, its deep involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. Dahomey conquered neighboring villages and kingdoms, capturing people to sell to European traders in exchange for guns, alcohol, and other goods. This cycle of violence fueled its expansion and created a constant need for more soldiers to defend its borders and conduct its raids. As Dahomey's power grew, so did the strain on its military. The constant warfare depleted the male population, leaving the kingdom vulnerable. It was out of this necessity that the Agojie, or Dahomey Amazons as Europeans called them, rose to prominence. While women had been part of the royal court for generations, serving as guards for the palace, it was under the rule of King Agojie in the early 1800s that their role transformed dramatically. Agojie saw their potential, their loyalty, and their untapped strength. He didn't just create an auxiliary unit. He integrated the Agojie fully into Dahomey's military machine, elevating them to the status of elite warriors. They became the kingdom's shock troops, the vanguard of the army. These were not just women given weapons. They were forged into Dahomey's finest soldiers. The training was famously grueling, designed to strip away all fear and instill absolute discipline. Recruits, some as young as girls, would endure intense physical conditioning. They learned to scale walls covered in sharp thorns without showing pain, to navigate dense and dangerous jungles, and to survive on meager rations for days. They practiced hand-to-hand combat, mastering the use of spears, machetes, and muskets. Their training was so brutal that it was said to desensitize them to death itself. They were sworn to celibacy, dedicating their lives entirely to the king and the kingdom. In a very real sense, they were married to the state. This singular focus made them incredibly effective. Their bond was not just as soldiers, but as sisters in arms, creating a cohesive and formidable fighting force. When the Agojie went to war, they were a terrifying sight. Their tactics were known for their speed, stealth, and ruthlessness. They often attacked under the cover of darkness, launching surprise raids on enemy villages. They moved with a chilling efficiency, their primary goals being to capture enemies and bring back trophies of their victory. They were famous for decapitating their opponents in battle, a practice that further solidified their fearsome reputation. European accounts from the time are filled with a mixture of horror and grudging admiration for their skill and courage. One French naval officer described them as having the audacity of seasoned veterans, charging into enemy fire without a moment's hesitation. Their courage became a legend, a symbol of Dahomey's power. For the king, they were his most trusted and loyal protectors. For their enemies, they were an unstoppable nightmare. But the story of the Agojie is not a simple tale of heroism. Their bravery and skill were in service to a kingdom whose wealth and power were inextricably linked to the slave trade. The very conquests they led, the captives they took, directly fueled this brutal system. The guns they used were purchased with the lives they helped enslave. This creates a profound and difficult moral conflict at the heart of their legacy. They were protectors of their people and their homeland, displaying a level of courage few could match. Yet the kingdom they defended was a key perpetrator in one of history's greatest atrocities. Imagine the internal conflict some of these women must have faced. They were fighting for their king, their culture, and their nation's survival as they understood it. Yet they were also instruments of oppression. They would raid a village, and while some of the captured would be assimilated into Dahomeyan society, many others were destined for the slave forts on the coast to be sold and shipped across the Atlantic, never to see their homes again. Did these women see the faces of their own people in the eyes of their captives? Did they wrestle with the morality of their actions? While historical records don't give us a clear window into their individual thoughts, it's impossible to look at their story without acknowledging this deep contradiction. They were both celebrated defenders and feared raiders, their legacy forever tied to the complex and painful history of slavery. Over time, their reputation spread far and wide. They were feared by rival African kingdoms and became a subject of fascination and respect for the European powers that encountered them. But the world was changing. In the late 19th century, the scramble for Africa brought European colonial ambitions into direct conflict with Dahomey sovereignty. The French, seeking to expand their empire in West Africa, set their sights on the kingdom. This led to two brutal wars between Dahomey and France. The Agojie were on the front lines, defending their land against a technologically superior enemy armed with machine guns and modern artillery. Eyewitness accounts from these wars describe the Agojie fighting with incredible ferocity, charging directly into French lines even in the face of certain death. They fought to the very end to protect their kingdom. However, their spears and old muskets were ultimately no match for the French military machine. The Kingdom of Dahomey was defeated and colonized in 1894, becoming a part of French West Africa. The royal army was disbanded, and with it, the era of the Agojie came to an end. The last known surviving Agojie passed away in 1979. Though their kingdom fell and their army was no more, their legacy survived in the memories of their people, in the stories passed down through generations, and in the enduring respect for their strength. Today in Benin, they are remembered as national heroes, with statues and cultural homages dedicated to their memory. The story of the Agojie forces us to ask difficult questions. Can we celebrate their undeniable bravery and skill, while also condemning the brutal system they fought to uphold? How do we remember historical figures who were both heroes to their own people and perpetrators of suffering for others? Their legacy is not black and white. It is a complex tapestry of courage, duty, violence, and complicity. It challenges us to look beyond simple narratives and grapple with the uncomfortable truths of the past. So I'll leave you with this thought. If you were an Agojie warrior in the 1800s, what would you have done? Would you have fought with unquestioning loyalty for your king and kingdom, the only life you knew? Or would you have questioned the moral cost of your kingdom's power, turning against everything you were raised to believe was your sacred duty? The answers are not easy, and that is precisely what makes the story of the warriors of Dahomey so powerful and enduring. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the complex corners of history. See you next time.